I want to start by saying this pretty clearly. This podcast is not a performance. It's just a decision that I made. I'm starting 1 year no excuses because I've realized something about myself and maybe you can relate. I usually have pretty good intentions. I have generally good ideas. I can sometimes even be good at motivating myself for a little while. What I haven't been very good at is sustained follow through, especially when nobody's watching. So this episode is kind of me drawing a line in the sand, not because I have everything figured out, but because I'm tired of vague promises that quietly seem to expire. This is the start of a 1 year experiment, and I'm choosing to do it out loud. This podcast is called 1 Year No Excuses, and the idea is pretty simple. For 1 year, I'm essentially committing to a small set of daily and weekly practices around faith, focus, and creation. And I'm going to hold myself publicly accountable to them. Not by giving advice, because I'm certainly not an expert, and not by pretending that this is going to be easy. Just by showing up once a week and telling the truth about what actually happened. This isn't a self-improvement podcast. It's not a productivity show. It's an accountability exercise. And having said all that, I invite you to join me on this journey. Share your goals, tell me about your struggles, and let's celebrate each other's wins. So I want to begin by explaining why I'm doing this, because context matters. Over the past few years, I've noticed something in my own life. My attention can be very scattered. My habits tend to be pretty inconsistent. And my goals, well, I'm not going to say that they were private. I would occasionally post something about my New Year's resolutions on Facebook, but then I would always end up deleting it a few weeks later because I was embarrassed that I didn't follow through. And I didn't want a public record of a promise I made to myself that I didn't keep. So I'm at a point now where I don't need any more information about my goals or my decisions, and I don't necessarily need more motivation. What I believe I need is structure, clarity, and a reason to stay honest when things get uncomfortable. This podcast exists because I believe accountability changes behavior, especially when it's calm, consistent, and unemotional. I'm not trying to impress anyone here. I'm simply trying to practice showing up. So, what no excuses actually means. The phrase no excuses can sound harsh, so I kind of want to define what I mean and what I don't mean. So, no excuses, it does not mean perfection. It doesn't mean never failing. It simply means that I don't hide behind failure, and I don't let my failure hide behind explanations. If I miss something, I'll say so. If something was harder than I expected it to be, I'll name it. And if a week goes poorly, the episode will still get recorded. The rule is pretty simple. No disappearing, no reframing, no pretending. If I miss commitment, that miss becomes part of the record, not something to erase. So each week, the podcast is going to follow the same structure. I'll go through the same checklist. I'll answer honestly, usually with a simple yes or a no or a partially. And then I'll reflect on what mattered most. Here's the checklist. This is what I'm committing to for the year. This podcast is an accountability exercise in faith, focus, and creation. So for faith, number one, I want to make sure I'm practicing daily Bible reading. Even if it's only a few verses, the goal isn't necessarily volume, it's consistency. Number two, I want to intentionally pray for one of my friends or a family member, just one person or family a week. No multitasking, no rushing through it. Just applying myself to a prayer closet for a friend. For focus, number 3, I'm going to do the carnivore diet this year. I'll be recording my starting weight and measurements and tracking how my body responds over time. This is not about aesthetics. It's about energy, discipline, and attention. And most importantly, better health. That's not to say that it wouldn't be nice to look better in my clothes. Number 4, I'll have one weekly no social day. So that's basically just 24 hours without my phone on lockdown, or with my phone on lockdown, rather. No scrolling Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or anything like that. I won't be checking my mail, my email, or doing any online shopping. I just want to take notice of what happens when the noise stops. Number 5, I want to read one book per month. So 12 books for the year. I don't want to do speed reading. I don't even know how to do speed reading. Just finding a good book that I think will be interesting and reading someone else's story. For creation, number 6, I want to learn a new skill, specifically AI, prompt engineering, and vibe coding. And this is not about becoming an expert yet. It's about practicing creation instead of constant consumption of other people's ideas and work. Eventually, I'll pursue expertise and maybe certification, assuming any exist, for AI prompt engineering. Who knows? Maybe I'll have a season 2 of this podcast next year, and my journey will be to become proficient in AI. And then finally, number 7, to maintain this podcast. 1 episode per week with few exceptions. My goal is to record 48 episodes in 2026. And I won't be skipping a week just because the week wasn't great. The podcast itself is part of the accountability. That's the list. It's not flashy, but I believe it's enough. So each week will look the same. I'm going to read this checklist. I'm going to answer honestly, and then I'll spend some time reflecting on 1 or 2 things that stood out. Not everything. It's not about filling time. It has a lot more to do with noticing patterns. And I have no doubt some episodes may be heavier than others, where some might be a lot shorter. The only requirement is that I show up and tell the truth each week. I also wanted to define what would be my idea of success. So I want to be clear that success is not weight loss, although that would be a fantastic byproduct. It's not audience size, even though it'd be nice to develop a community of listeners with whom we share our wins together and discuss our challenges, work through them. It's not perfect streaks, despite my intention not to skip any weeks. Success is simply making it to the end of the year, still recording, still practicing, and still being honest. So if I'm still here a year from now, I will consider this exercise successful. Now, I want to end with a very simple invitation. If you're listening to this and you've set goals or resolutions of your own, I'd love to hear about them. You can share them in the comments or send them to me at oneyearnoexcuses@gmail.com, or just write them down somewhere so they're visible to yourself as a daily reminder to you of what your goals are for the year. You don't need a podcast to be accountable. I'm just doing this because I believe it'll help me to be accountable. You just need clarity and consistency. So next week is going to be my first real check-in. I'll be going over the same checklist. I promise I'm not going to frame anything to make it look better than it actually is. And I'll only discuss what actually happened. With that, this is 1 year, no excuses. I appreciate you being here.